now that you've had some time, what are your takeaways from the second scrimmage?
Yeah, I think my takeaways are that I think the defensive line specifically took advantage of some guys not playing.
Yep.
Kingsley Egwakin have been
Yes, we
saying
learned
that
that.
wrong. I've been saying that wrong for 3 years.
All of us have. Everyone's been saying Egwakon. It's not Egwakon.
Egwakin. That's the worst. At least it wasn't him that corrected us. It was somebody that works for UF. Like, oh, it's Egwakin, and we're like, oh.
Well, because Billy said it in a press conference a couple weeks
freshman.
ago.
He's not a sophomore. He's a redshirt junior, I think. He's been here a while, and we've been mispronouncing his name.
He's a multi-year starter.
He's going into his third year starting, and he's just softly whispers to someone, "Hey, they're saying my name wrong."
Well, Billy said it in a press conference a couple weeks ago, and I thought he mispronounced it.
Well, you know what? I think Billy is pretty good at pronouncing his players' names, and we should probably just start following him.
We should.
But Kingsley Egwakin gets a day off, and I keep mentioning it, and Billy kind of, even with his tone and his inflection, emphasized how much deeper and better the defensive front is. And obviously with Micah Mazuka out, with Cam Waits out, with Farmer out, then you take Kingsley out. Those are all guys who could be starters. So you're missing a ton of starters. And I think the defensive line, Tyreek Sapp, Cam Waits, Princey Umamielen.
Look at you.
Picking all the tough names today. I think those guys really kind of wreaked havoc. I don't know that it was a great day for the offense. Outside of, Graham Mertz threw a touchdown to Xavier Henderson, but I think Xavier Henderson was just on one yesterday, on one on Thursday. I think he had 3 touchdowns, had a great day. So I think overall the defense probably wins the day, creating turnovers, and that probably starts up front where the offensive line was missing some people and the defensive line was wreaking havoc.
Yeah, it sounded like it was a good scrimmage pretty much for Jack Miller. And, we'll get into the quarterback battle, but Billy had some great things to say about the way that he played and just the way that he's responded to the competition. But obviously on the offensive side, the strength of that unit is going to be those 2 running backs, even though that whole room has really done some great things in camp, along with Carroll and Webb. But Etienne and Montrell Johnson specifically had 2 really good days in the second scrimmage. One thing that we learned coming out of that scrimmage was, Nick, they actually ran some wildcat, and I know that that's something that Billy's done in the past, but I think we maybe have saw it in a couple times last season. But now, if you're trying to put the ball in the hands of your best players, that's a great thing to do, and that's a great formation that you can utilize. So I'm excited to maybe see that unveiled some more this year. And, you want to put those guys, with the ball in their hands. We saw the video this week of Trevor Etienne that made its way on Twitter. That dude looks like he's added a few miles per hour to his speed, Nick. And, you want those guys running the ball as much as possible.
Yeah, last year Trell ran a couple wildcats, but I'm thinking your quarterback can probably run as well as him and throws it a lot better. Maybe do less of this. So this is something I think you do. And also shout out to my Miami Dolphins for really bringing the Wildcat back to football some years ago. But I think if you don't have an Anthony Richardson, then I think you can see more Wildcat and start to see some more wrinkles. To me, it just doesn't make sense. If you have a quarterback that runs like Anthony Richardson, why are you going to take him off the field or split him out wide to have a running back do that? Like, he can do the job that the running back is doing right now, and also has the threat of throwing it, which Montrell Johnson, maybe he does, but we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, and if you ever did split Anthony out wide, it's not like you couldn't throw him a pass. That dude could definitely go out for a route, but you need a running back with an arm back there. So but a really good day for Xavier Henderson. Like you mentioned, I think on the defensive side, Jason Marshall had a pick. He's had a really strong spring, and 2 other guys as well that have stood out this spring is Cam Jackson and Justice Boone. You mentioned the defensive line having another good day, Nick. I think those 2 in particular. I mean, Boone's ascension has basically allowed Princely to move to edge. If Boone wasn't where he was at, Princey's probably staying put. So he's now kind of taken over that defensive end spot, had a sack in the scrimmage, and Cam Jackson just continues to dominate. We have heard his name repeatedly throughout camp, and I think right now you can almost Sharpie him in as a starter.
Yeah, I would say so. I'd be pretty. In baseball, they say when you're doing a scorebook, you should use pencil, not pen, because things get changed, hits and errors get changed, and it's easier to erase pencil. I would use a Sharpie. I think it's pretty safe to say that Cam Jackson has come in and was everything that was advertised. He was one of the premier interior defensive linemen in the transfer portal, and I think we're seeing why this spring. And then the biggest thing, I already mentioned it a little bit, is just the depth, not having to ask him to play 70 snaps a game. You're going to be able to rotate guys in. I think that elevates everyone's play because you're not dog tired in the fourth quarter because you've played 47 snaps. And now, someone brings in a fresh running back and you've got a tired defensive line. So to me, that's one of my biggest takeaways for the spring in general is just the growth of that position in Banks as well. I think Banks is a guy who I thought was going to be a project and maybe would need a redshirt year and a year to develop and grow and get a little bit bigger. He's someone whose name I keep hearing as well. So I think Florida's depth on the defensive line is going to be one of their strengths next season.
I mean, I think we'll get into our depth chart projections, but I think there's a chance that those two could be your starting nose and defensive tackle. Cam Jackson and Caleb Banks. I mean, they've been out there repping at times with the first team defense. So that's certainly something to watch for. And then just some more takeaways from the scrimmage. I think it's important to point out that the Gators got both Mitchells back. Miguel Mitchell and Taraja Mitchell, both of whom have been out in non-contact jerseys. Taraja a little bit longer. He hasn't played since the 7th practice and didn't play in the first scrimmage. I mean, he's missed over a week. So it was important to get him back despite his experience and probably his ability to pick up the defense pretty fast. You still need him out there playing with that unit, full go with that unit, and just kind of settling in at that inside linebacker spot where I think that he's going to start with Shamar James. And then Miguel Mitchell, who is another projected starter at safety, and I think maybe right now the only guy that's a for sure to start at that position. He got hurt, I think, in the last scrimmage, spent the past week sidelined in a non-contact jersey, and then Thursday was his first day back. He had a pass breakup early on in the scrimmage. So, Corey Raymond raved about him, Nick, and, I think that it's good for the Gators to get him back. And then just overall for the defense, they forced some turnovers in the first scrimmage. They did it once again on Thursday. Billy said that they created a lot of negative plays and tackles for loss. As you mentioned, Nick, that defensive line took advantage of some starters being out on the offensive front. And I think the biggest thing that probably from scrimmage 1 to scrimmage 2, they needed to improve was the communication because still it is a lot of new pieces on defense. It's still a new coordinator, even though it's a lot of the same scheme. And that first scrimmage was their first time in a setting like that. So second time around, Billy felt like they communicated better as a defense. I'm sure that it helped to have both Mitchells back out there because those guys are responsible for that communication.
Yeah, that's going to be huge. I think Mitchell came in and really filled that role, but then has been out for a lot of stuff. I liked when we were out at practice before scrimmages and other practices, even when he was non-contact, he's kind of going through the drills off to the side on his own. I think it's so important, for all the new guys. Everyone's talking about Graham Mertz, how much he's been in the building. It's like, well, he has to. You're playing catch up. He spent 3 years at Wisconsin learning and knowing a system, and now everything's different. So he has to do more. And I think Mitchell was doing more. I think Banks has done more. So you like to see that from those transfer guys. But from a communication standpoint, that's the linebacker and the safety. And I think it's good that you're seeing some younger guys like Kamari and Miguel step up and be more vocal. I think Miguel's probably had a better spring at safety, and it'll be interesting. That's a position that I think Florida needs to go into the portal for when it opens here in 8 days.
Yeah, that's going to be a whole another set of storylines to follow,
Yeah.
Nick. But those are our takeaways from the second scrimmage. Make sure that you guys head over to Gators Online to read all of our coverage. We'll continue to churn out stories from Billy's press conference, and then also as we inch closer to Thursday, start to preview the orange and blue game in the Swamp.